How you doing, guys? Big Mac Dan School here again today, back once again with another Warhammer 40,000 Conquest video for you. Have you seen the leaks? Check them out in the description below. Yes, if you didn't already know, Warhammer 40,000 Conquest, the contents of it has been leaked basically by the Spanish publisher of the magazine. So the next place it's launching, or it may have already launched, is in Spain. For a subscription, and they've published on a website, probably their website, what is coming in each issue. So I don't need to be telling you future issues now. I still will, of course, but there's a link in the description below to the website where you can see the entire run of what we're getting, and it does answer a few questions for us, such as, will certain models be split over numerous issues? The answer is yes. So provided they've got multiple sprues, they will be split over certain issues. But working out the cost and everything, you're still saving money on things like the repulsor. You're spending, that's split over 4 issues, and you're spending just under £32 to get it, so £31.96 to get it. And then your normal repulsor from Games Workshop is £50, so you're still saving a heck of a lot of money there. It's like 36% saving, isn't it? So, yeah, what's this today? This is issue 20. Ooh. I have to do my 5-second pose, like Edge and Christian from WWE, because I like to take a screenshot, so I can use it for my thumbnail. That's what I do every time, but I don't normally leave that bit in the video. Thought I'd leave it in there as a nice treat for you. Fantastic stuff. So, moving on. What's in this issue? This issue, you get some, wow, armoured containers. Another one of them. Fantastic. I may try and do a conversion with this. I've got another one unbuilt, so I may try and merge the two together to make one big armoured container. But we'll see. And then I can use the other bits for a vehicle or something, you know, conversion, an orc conversion of a truck or something like that. We'll see what I do with them. And then inside the issue is what you want to know about, isn't it? So we've got issue 19. Turning the first page, we've got some Space Marine chapters. So these are all successor chapters to the Ultramarines. We've got Fulminators, Black Consuls, Eagle Warriors, Nova Marines, Howling Griffins, Hawk Lords, Castellans of the Rift, and Void Tridents. There's a mixture there of chapters that have been founded over the various millennia. Some of them are new chapters, Primaris chapters, but other ones like the Nova Marines have been around for years. And then it goes on to tell us about honour markings of the Space Marines on this page. So the bullet on a marking denotes that it's a marksman on a marking, the particularly good at ranged combat, basically. So your snipers might get stuff like that, but interestingly, it gives you a bit of the lore here as well, saying the badges are believed to have been made from a vulture shell casing fired by Rabute Guilliman that has been coated in gold. So it's a nice little bit of lore there, and it's interesting that that's a marksman's honour that is used across all chapters of Space Marines. And if it's Guilliman's bolt shell casing that's been discarded, been used, then it's suggesting that all the chapters, even those not sired by Guilliman, have his bolt shell casing. So even though he's not their Primarch, like this guy here is an Imperial Fist, the Imperial Fist Primarch is Rogel Dawn. Even though Guilliman isn't their Primarch, he's still revered by everybody else, and he still leads all Space Marine chapters, despite the fact that he isn't the gene father of all Space Marine chapters. Yes, so it talks about laurel wreaths, the Imperial laurel. Talks about service studs here. Often on Space Marine models, you'll see like a little lump on I think it's above the right eyebrow, a little lump or 2 lumps, and it denotes a period of service. So depending on the chapter's traditions, it might be 10, 50 or 100 years service. You never see you never see a Space Marine with loads of lumps all over his head. So obviously the life expectancy of a Space Marine isn't that long, but when you get to someone like Marnius Calgar, who's been alive for centuries, he must have been alive for centuries surely, you'd expect to see a lot of studs all over his head. Or Dante is the oldest living Space Marine. Obviously he wears the death mask of Sanguinius, but it's, well, I think that's what he wears anyway. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he took that off, would he have loads of service studs all over his head. And then it's got like the Prime Helix, which is the mark of the Apothecary, the Crux Terminatus, which is a veteran marking of the First Company, the icon of the Death Watch. If the Death Watch is a elite force of Space Marines taken from all chapters of Space Marines, and they're known for fighting Xenos, basically fighting aliens, and they may then return to their parent chapter at some point. And the Death Watch shoulder pad, which typically is on the left shoulder, then reverts to the right shoulder. And then the Iron Skull denotes a sergeant rank, and the Purity Seal, which isn't actually an honour marking, it's just like a it's not an honour marking, it's a blessing given by a chaplain. And then it's onto the Codex Astartes. It gives us a little bit of lore here about the Horus Heresy, and after the heresy, how Guilliman started the Codex Astartes. And then there's the original 20 or 18 that we know, Space Marine Legions there, covered there, and it tells us which ones are traitors. It tells us second founding chapters of various ones like the Dark Angels. The second founding chapters of them are the Angels of Absolution, Angels of Redemption, and Angels of Vengeance, and so on and so forth. Tells us all the information we need there, and things like the Homeworld and the Primarch as well. And then it's onto the how to build section. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pages on how to build. I'm still a little bit, I feel like that's a waste of 4 pages because we've already had 2 magazines with the armoured containers in. But I do understand, you know, maybe some people missed out on previous container issues, so they have to include it in each issue. But it would have been nice if they could have dedicated this to these 4 pages to a bit more lore or a bit more how to paint, something like that. And they could have had just like a download on the website for the how to build if people had missed out on the issue. But anyway, that's just my beef. It's maybe a few other people's as well, but it's some people need it. So there we go. How to paint armoured containers. We've got a red armoured container in this issue. So we paint first with Mephiston Red. Turn the page. We've got a bit of dry brushing. What paint do we use to dry brush? Bugman's Glow on the red. So what I find interesting about Conquest is it's suggesting that Games Workshop's line of Citadel paints doesn't need to be as big as it is. Of course it doesn't need to be as big as it is, but Games Workshop produce that many different shades and tones and different tweaks, you know, and they say highlight this colour with this colour, blah 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 blah. They say that in order to make their painting system as simple as possible, I think. But some people, like myself probably, I often think, oh, I've got to get that colour because I need to highlight my Calador Sky, so I need the correct highlight for that. And with things like the Citadel painting app and stuff, I think that encourages you to go out and buy more and more paints. But sometimes you just need to sit back and realise you don't need that colour, that specific colour. You either need one close to it, or you can mix a little bit of white in with the Calador Sky, as I used in the example. Mix a little bit of white in, and then it'll just lighten that colour slightly, and then you can use that as a highlight. So Bugman's Glow isn't traditionally a dry brush for Mephiston Red. Is it Mephiston Red? Looks very dark. It looks more like corn red. But yeah, they're saying it's Mephiston Red. The pictures they've taken have made it look like corn red there to me. That looks like Mephiston Red. That, corn red. It might be because they painted it straight onto the brown plastic that's making the colour change slightly or look like it's changed. And then we've got some gold detailing, silver, as usual on all the other containers. And then onto the containers finished there. And the barrels, they're getting painted in this issue. Wonder what colour they're going to be. We've got more ammunition crates. Turn the page, the barrels painted red. Way! With red with the Retributor Armour gold detailing on and an Agrax Surshade wash. So it's nice and simple. And I'd speculated that they might put a band around there using, I think we've got a Rakarth flesh, but I can't remember. We do have a second flesh paint, don't we? But I'm not 100% certain what it is. And then it's on to the Duel of Champions. What's all that about? Duel of Champions. So this is the final, of the first 20 issues, this is the final tutorial mission. So this game includes Lord Felthius, Tainted Cohort and 5 Plague Marines, and the Space Marines take Lieutenant Calcius, Primaris Librarian, 2 Hellblasters and 3 Aggressors. So basically it's like your leaders and elite warriors of each of the factions that we've collected so far. It's like the final showdown before the battle moves onto the planet of Kovan 2. And then how to win. The Death Guard win by eliminating a character. You get 2 victory points for that. Eliminate an infantry unit, 1 victory point. Be the first player to eliminate an enemy unit, 1 victory point. So that's introducing the idea of first blood to us. It's often, in most scenarios and most games, you get a victory point for first blood. So whichever, either you or your opponent kills an enemy model, or not an enemy model, an enemy unit first. So if it's a character, just wipe out that 1 character. Or if it's a unit of 5 Space Marines, wipe out them 5 Space Marines. Then you'll get a victory point for that. Certain tournaments and stuff, they play it slightly differently. Where if you kill an enemy unit in the first turn, then you get a victory point. And that enables your opponent to get a victory point for the same thing as well, which is slightly fairer possibly. Because if I get first turn, I'm more likely than you to kill something in the first turn, aren't I? As long as I've got the kind of range shooting or a means to get to you and kill you in combat. So there we go. Yeah. So the setup for this mission is like champions facing off against each other. Should I do you a reading?
The hulls of the Rotbringer and the Honour of Ultramar are riven with battle damage as both ships approach Kovan 2. As the Ultramarines prepare to disengage and launch their counterattack on the planet's surface, the leaders of both forces clash in mortal combat. Okay,
on to the next page, so Kovan 2. We've got a little bit of lore scenario here, just going into more detail. The green sphere of Kovan 2 looms large as the Honour of Ultramar and the Rotbringer begin to disengage, deploying transport vessels from their hangar bays. The Death Guard are already swarming over the land masses of the planet, crushing all resistance in their path. Only the might of the Ultramarines can save Kovan 2 from a terrible fate. Interestingly, I don't think the planet looks that green. They say it's a green sphere. It doesn't look that green to me. It looks kind of grey. Hints of green maybe, but it's definitely not a green sphere. And it's telling you where the 2 fleets are. So the Ultramarine fleet's here and the Death Guard fleet's here, just in this sort of area, I think. I think that's what it's trying to depict there. And then it talks briefly about industrial worlds, saying that they're covered in smoke, they're covered with smoke belching factories and completely polluted with choking clouds. In the 41st millennium, if you're new to the universe, Earth is now known as Terra. Not Terror, but Terra, Terra. So it's now known as Terra, and it's basically a barren rock where all the oceans have boiled off. I think I've mentioned this in a previous video. All the oceans have boiled off. People that live on the surface, in the ocean basins, for want of a better word, they sort of scavenge for scrap and stuff like that, but there's high density populations in certain areas around the Imperial Palace, which is the Imperial Palace. If you ever hear of that, that's where the Emperor's corpse sits on the golden throne. And the Astronomicon, I think, comes from the Imperial Palace as well, which is the light of the Emperor, basically, which enables the Imperium to find their way through the warp. The Imperial Palace is in the Himalayas, and there's certain land masses where there's more dense populations. Like I said, I think the sort of South America area, like Brazil and that, I've read about in certain Horus Heresy novels. But there's also these big floating platforms above the planet and where people live. and it's completely different to how it is now. It's not a nice place, I don't think. It's just full of squalor and the haves and have-nots. Well, that's pretty similar, some people would say, to the current state of the world. So there we go. A little, got a little deep there. I didn't mean to go that deep. But anyway, moving on to this, Kovan 2, setting up your own battlefield. So for the first time, we've flipped that map over that we've got, and we go onto the plain side where there's no deployment zones indicated. There's no containers pictured on the map. So this is the plain side of the map, and they're saying you roll off to see who deploys a piece of terrain first. They're suggesting you place it within 3 inches of the edge of the battlefield, because it'll make it a slightly more dynamic battlefield then. One person places a bit of terrain, the other person does, and then it's the first person again. And it's just guiding you through. The terrain rules nice and easy. And then it says you roll off for deployment. So again, you roll off for deployment. Sam gets a 5, Max gets a 3, so Sam chooses this deployment zone, which has handily got 2 containers in front of it, so you're going to get a bit more cover on this side, aren't you? That's the advantage of choosing that side. So you place 1 unit first, and then your opponent places their first unit, and then you alternate deployment after that. And then we've got that final page again. Kovan 2, new battle map, new terrain, new missions coming in that issue. In the next 10 issues, well, I'll tell you about the next 2 issues first, shall I? Yeah. So issue 21, we're getting the Reavers. Issue 22, we're getting some Astro Granite and a medium base brush. I think that'll be £4, and medium base brush is about £4 as well. So you're looking at about the right value. You're probably saving a tiny bit of money on issue 22. Moving on to issue 23. What have we got in issue 23? I can't remember what we've got in issue 23, but I think it's 25. We're getting the first sprue for the Redemptor Dreadnought, and then we're getting the second sprue in 26, something like that. And then we're getting a Rhino. So in the next 10 issues, we're getting 2 big vehicles. These are the biggest vehicle kits we've had so far. So it's the sort of, I think they realise now people just want some good stuff. And then you get some less exciting stuff, and then they're spreading it out nicely throughout the issues, which I think is good, especially if you're getting the delivery of 4 issues at a time. You're going to be theoretically getting some decent stuff in every delivery, which is the best way for them to do it, really, in my opinion, to keep people happy. So that's my thoughts for there on issue 20. It's a good issue. As always, as I've said on the previous issues with the containers in, I love terrain, so I always value these issues quite highly. But there's some good lore in there as well, near the start of it, but also when you get to the them advancing the story of the battle that we're fighting in these scenarios. So I enjoyed this issue. I read through it really quickly in work, but yeah, it's not to say that there's no content in there. There is good content in there as well. So I'll leave it there for now, guys. Let me know what you think of the issue yourself. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.